The forgotten warning, the Galactic Council chamber, was filled with light and color, but the air inside felt heavy. Thousands of alien delegates sat in their seats, waiting for the session to begin. Their voices whispered across the hall, speaking of trade routes, border disputes, and new colonies. Yet hidden in the center of the agenda was a strange item one that made the oldest members shift uncomfortably in their chairs. At the center platform, High Chancellor Varys raised her voice. Her species, tall and silver-skinned, ruled half the galaxy. She looked calm, but even her eyes flickered when she read the subject aloud. Ancient Law Number 1, never wake the humans. The chamber grew silent. Many younger races blinked in confusion. Humans? They whispered to one another. Are they extinct? Were they even real? One young delegate laughed. Surely this is just a myth, he said. Old campfire tales to scare colonies in the outer rim. His voice carried across the chamber, and soon others began to chuckle. But then an old alien slowly stood. His back was bent, his horns chipped with age, his voice raspy. He was Elder Tharn, one of the last historians of his people. His words echoed like stone grinding against stone. You laugh because you are too young to remember, he said. But I have seen the ruins. I have read the warnings carved in 100 dead languages. There was once a law that bound every empire together. It was the first law ever written among the stars. Never wake the humans. Some delegates shifted. In their seats, uneasy now. The elder's eyes burned with something deeper than fear. It was memory. They were not myth, he continued. They were the reason our galaxy even has laws. Entire civilizations once rose and fell because of them. We swore to let them sleep forever, buried in their world. To disturb them would be to end everything. Laughter stopped. The chamber grew colder. High Chancellor Varys leaned forward. And yet, Elder, there has been no proof. For 10,000 years, no one has seen a human. Their world is a wasteland, silent and dead. Why should we continue to bind ourselves to this old ghost story? The Elder's voice dropped, because the law was not made to honor humans. It was made to protect us. A ripple of silence swept the chamber, but before more could be said, an alarm rang across the council hall. Screens lit up, showing images from the edge of the Sol system, the system once home to humans. A research fleet had been sent there. Against the warnings of older records, the images showed strange signals, waves of energy bursting from the surface of Earth. Machines hidden under the crust were awakening, their hums echoing into space. One. Researcher's last message played across the chamber. His face was pale, his voice shaking. We touched something. Panel inside the ruins. It started moving. The ground opened, and lights everywhere. I think we woke them. The screen cut to static. Panic spread in the chamber. Delegates shouted at one another. Some demanded fleets be sent to destroy Earth before it was too late. Others said to flee and seal all borders. The young laughed no more. Elder Tharn raised his cracked hands and whispered words that chilled the chamber to silence. The law was clear. Never wake the humans. And now the law has been broken. High Chancellor Varys sat frozen, her silver eyes wide. Deep in her heart, something ancient stirred, an old fear she could not name. Across the galaxy, from distant colonies to the core worlds, whispers began to spread. Merchants, soldiers, and children repeated the phrase as if it had never been. Forgotten, never wake the humans. And far away, beneath Earth's broken oceans and buried cities, something vast began to move. The ground trembled. A voice older than empires whispered through the static of the stars. Awakening sequence. Begun. The chamber erupted in chaos, but one truth was now clear to all. The oldest law of the universe had been forgotten. And now it was too late to remember **, the silent world. The research fleet that dared to land on Earth was gone. Not destroyed, just missing. No signals, no survivors, only fragments of data scattered across the void. Yet despite the loss, the Galactic Empire could not resist the temptation. Curiosity was stronger than fear. So another ship was sent. It was not a warship, but an explorer-class vessel, the Nayari Dawn. Its crew of 35 came from across the stars, proud scientists and eager adventurers who believed the warnings were exaggerated. They told themselves the humans were only a dead race, long forgotten. What danger could they pose now? Captain Relker, a stern reptilian officer, looked out from the ship's window as Earth grew larger on the screen. A planet looked broken oceans. Gray skies cracked with storms, land burned by scars of long wars. Empty, one officer said with relief. Just a ruined world. No life here. But Relkor's eyes narrowed. Something about the silence was wrong. The planet looked dead. Yes, but it did not feel dead. The ship descended lower. Storms broke apart as if pushed aside by unseen hands. Massive structures jutted out of the sea's ruins, shaped not like alien architecture, but like weapons waiting to be rearmed. The crew sent drones to explore the surface. They flew through shattered cities, broken towers, and long-abandoned streets. Everywhere, the same sign appeared, carved into walls and doors, a single circle with 3 slashes across it. The crew didn't understand its meaning, but it chilled them anyway. Then one drone entered a cavern beneath what was once a city. Its camera lit up, showing rows of machines, tall as mountains, buried deep under stone. Their surfaces glowed, faintly like embers waiting for air. "Captain," the science officer whispered, "these are not ruins. They are intact, still active." Relkor's tail twitched nervously. "Pull it back. Don't touch anything." But it was too late. The drone's light scanned across the cavern wall, brushing against a panel hidden in the dark. The surface flared. Alive with symbols, bright as lightning, the cavern shook. Energy surged upward like a heartbeat waking from slumber. Power readings rising fast. Another officer cried. "It's spreading across the planet." Outside, Earth trembled. Oceans roared, skies split, and across continents, long-dead machines stirred. Gigantic towers unfolded from the ground, releasing clouds of dust and ash. Into the air. Cities lit up with lights that had been dark for millennia. The explorers stared at their screens, frozen in horror. Then, a sound reached them. Not words, not a signal, but a pulse. A deep vibration that echoed into their bones. It was like a heartbeat, steady and ancient. The humans were not speaking. They were breathing. Captain Relker gripped the edge of his chair. "Shut it down. Shut everything down." Cut the link, but the systems would not obey. The ship's lights flickered. The engines stalled. Even the air recyclers groaned under invisible pressure. It was as if Earth itself was reaching into their ship, pulling at its systems, refusing to let go. Then, through the static of the comms, a voice whispered. It was low, distorted, impossible to trace. But every crew member heard it inside there. "Skulls, who disturbed our rest?" the crew screamed. Some tore at their helmets, others fell to their knees. Captain Relker fought to keep control, shouting for calm. The science officer whispered in terror. "It's not coming through the speakers. It's in our minds." The voice grew stronger. "You forgot the law. You touched what was forbidden. And now we awaken." The ship's hull groaned as if gripped by invisible claws. Alarms rang across the deck. "Break orbit," Relker roared. "Full power, get us out." Engines roared, but the ship moved sluggishly, like swimming against a tide. Something was holding them, something vast and unseen. The crew shouted, some praying, some cursing. And then? Silence. The ship broke free, tossed into the void as if Earth itself had released it. The crew gasped for air, shaking with terror. They thought they were safe, but the sensors lit up deep under the oceans. A shape was rising. Colossal, larger than cities, its outline barely visible on the scanners. Two blazing eyes lit the water, burning like suns. Captain Relker whispered the words he had once mocked. Never wake the humans. The ship jumped faster than light speed, fleeing back to the Empire. But the truth was clear now. Earth was not silent. It was alive. And it was awakening far behind them. The planet glowed faintly, sending ripples. Across the stars. A signal older than empires had been reborn. And across the galaxy, those who still remembered the law felt the chill in their bones. The humans were stirring. Asterisk. The first stirring, the Nayari dawn, fled into the void, but the galaxy was already trembling. The ripples from Earth spread far and wide, like waves in a black ocean. Every sensor array, every listening post, every deep space observatory caught the same signal, a pulse, steady, ancient, growing stronger. On the outer colonies, miners stopped working when their drills went silent. The ground beneath their feet shuddered, though no quake was registered. On distant moons, machines that had lain dead for centuries suddenly blinked a live dot, and on the great trade hub of Korath, people fell to the ground, clutching their heads. As the same words echoed in their minds, "We are awake." The Galactic Council gathered once again. The chamber was louder this time. Voices panicked, delegates screaming over one another. "They are rising!" Shouted one. "They were supposed to be extinct." Cried another. "We must strike before they spread." High Chancellor Varys slammed her hand down. The sound silenced the hall, but fear still lived in every eye. "We cannot strike," she said coldly. "We don't even know what they are. The last ship barely escaped. We risk everything if we move in blind." But Elder Tharn stood, his voice shaking like thunder. "You risk more if you do nothing. They are not like us." "Do you not remember? When they fight, they do not stop. When they rise, no empire survives." The young delegates tried to laugh again, but their voices cracked. The images from the Nayari dawn could not be denied. Machines stirring beneath oceans, eyes burning under the waves. Across the galaxy, fleets were placed on alert. Orders closed. Yet even as armies prepared, strange events began to spread. On the agricultural world of Sereth, farmers looked up in terror as their skies turned red for a single night. A sound like drums beating across the heavens shook their crops flat. On the icy mining world of Deluin, workers found massive handprints, carved into glaciers that had been untouched for millennia. The prints were larger than any creature known. And on the distant communication relay of Velkar Station, technicians played back the mysterious pulse and discovered something terrifying. It was not just a signal. It was a countdown. Meanwhile, in the Sol system, the first machines stirred. Beneath the Atlantic Trench, a massive construct slowly rose, shedding stone and rust like old skin. Its body was plated with black metal, its engines humming with impossible power. Around it, schools of fish scattered, fleeing from the burning glow of its eyes. On land, mountains cracked open to reveal buried vaults. Inside, rows upon rows of human warships rested, silent for thousands of years. One by one, lights began to flicker across their hulls. And in the ruins of a city once called New York, a chamber opened. Dust poured out as ancient air spilled into the night. Inside, a single figure lay on a throne of steel. The figure's chest rose. Air filled his lungs. His eyes opened two orbs of blazing fire. He whispered one word, and though no microphone caught it, The entire galaxy heard it. Who? Back in the council chamber, chaos erupted again. News poured in strange storms, collapsing systems, ships reporting interference across entire sectors. "They are returning," Elder Tharn said. His cracked lips trembled as he spoke, not with weakness, but with memory. This is how it began, long ago. The first stirring? The signal before the war. High Chancellor Varys pressed her hands to her head. She had tried to remain calm, but now she felt the truth. Something ancient was rising. Something too vast to fight suddenly. Every screen in the chamber flickered. The same words appeared in every language, across every planet, every ship, every mind. The oldest law was broken. The reckoning begins. Delegates screamed. Some collapsed. Armies across the galaxy readied for war, and in the shadows of Sol, the humans took their first breath in thousands of years. The stars themselves seemed to grow colder. It was only the beginning. Asterisk. Fear across the stars. The galaxy had always believed it was vast, eternal, untouchable. Yet in only a few cycles, that illusion shattered. The pulse from Earth had reached every corner of the stars. It was no longer a signal. It was a shadow spreading through every world, a reminder that something older and stronger had opened its eyes. In the great cities of the Empire, people woke in the night, screaming the same words, though they had never learned them. Never wake the humans. No one knew how the phrase entered their dreams. Priests called it prophecy. Scientists called it brainwave infection. But deep in their hearts, everyone felt the same truth. The words were not warning them. The words were condemning them. At the Galactic Council, panic was now routine. Delegates no longer laughed. They shouted, begged, demanded fleets to be sent toward Sol. "We cannot let them rise," cried the Alvaran envoy, his wings trembling. "They are one world against thousands," shouted another. "Strike before they remember who they are." But others were pale with terror. "And if we strike," whispered a soft-voiced delegate, "what if it makes them angry?" The chamber fell silent. Even to suggest such a thought was enough to freeze the blood. Elder Tharn leaned heavily on his staff. His voice was barely a whisper, but it carried across the hall like thunder. "You still do not understand. Humans do not need remembering. They do not need rebuilding. Everything there lies waiting beneath their world. They do not rise slowly. When they awaken, they return whole." The silence was broken by a frantic aide rushing into the chamber, her face drained of color. She carried a holoscreen and activated it in the center. A shaky recording appeared. It came from a scout ship near Sol. The image showed black waters boiling, parting like curtains. From beneath, something enormous rose. Not a ship, not a beast, but something in between. A colossal machine with skin like metal and eyes like suns. The ship that recorded the image began to shake as if space itself was rejecting its presence. The last words of the scout whispered across the chamber. "It looked at us." The screen cut to static. Screams filled the council hall. Delegates fled their seats, some clawing toward exits, others collapsing under invisible pressure in their minds. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the fear grew heavier. On the distant world of Arthas Prime, soldiers guarding the orbital platforms began deserting their posts. Some whispered that their weapons felt like toys compared to what was coming. On merchant stations, trade stopped. Cargo was abandoned in hangars as rumors spread that humans were rising again. Whole sectors shut down their starlings, locking. Borders in panic. And among the great fleets of the Empire, a strange sickness took hold. Crews whispered at night. Captains awoke screaming, their dreams filled with glowing human eyes. Some ships mutinied before they even saw battle. High Chancellor Varys called an emergency war council. Admirals gathered, their armor gleaming under the lights But none carried pride anymore. We must assemble the greatest armada the galaxy has ever seen. One admiral demanded. Strike Sol before it spreads. Others shook their heads. How do you strike what you cannot understand? Another asked. The first law was not made by accident. It was made in blood. Entire empires burned before ours was even born. And every lawmaker swore, never wake them again. Varys sat silent, her silver eyes staring at the void beyond the chamber windows. She remembered the scout's last words. It looked at us. Something about those words sank deep inside her. Not just fear certainty. Whatever was beneath earth was not blind, not weak, not confused. It was aware. And it knew. In the Sol system, the first true signs appeared. Human warships broke from their prisons of ice and stone, lifting into the skies. Their hulls were dark, sleek, older than memory, yet shining with power no empire understood. The ships did not move like fleets of other species. They rose in silence, in perfect order, as if they had always been waiting for this moment. And then, one voice echoed across the stars, clear and sharp. It came not from transmitters, not from machines, but straight into the hearts of every living being. The law was broken. Who will answer for it? Back on the council floor, silence swallowed. The chamber. Every delegate sat frozen, their eyes wide, their hearts hammering. For the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy felt smaller. The stars themselves seemed dimmer. And far away, in the heart of Sol, the humans kept rising. It was only the first stirring. The real storm had not yet begun. The awakening the galaxy had seen storms before, wars, plagues, rebellions, but nothing like this. This was not war yet. It was not even invasion. This was something worse. It was awakening. In the Sol system. The silence broke. From under oceans, vaults opened like yawning mouths. From mountains, doors of black steel slid aside, releasing ancient air. From the crust of Earth itself, ships rose like shadows stretching into the sky. They were not new ships, yet they gleamed as if they had never aged. Hulls of black metal absorbed starlight, glowing faintly with blue fire. Some were the size of cities, others small, and sharp like blades, but all carried the same aura, inevitability. Above the planet, human war machines aligned in perfect formation, silent, ordered, unstoppable. Not one engine roared, not one signal buzzed. And yet, every species across the galaxy felt them move. Inside the council chambers, reports flooded in. 10,000 warships detected around Sol, energy readings off the scale. Communication intercept, unknown code, possibly human. Origin. Delegates clutched their heads as the strange heartbeat they had been feeling grew louder. It was not just sound, it was inside them, shaking their blood, making them feel small. And then came the voice, not from transmitters, not from speakers. It came from everywhere at once, inside minds, inside machines, even inside stone. Who broke the law? The words were simple, but the effect was catastrophic. Entire planets screamed. Fleets drifted in space as crews collapsed in fear. Even the strongest warlords felt their knees buckle under the weight of the question. Hi. Chancellor Varys gripped her seat until her silver fingers bled. The voice had entered her like a knife. She could not lie to it. She could not even think without feeling its presence. The elder Tharn whispered, tears falling down his ancient face. It is them, the humans. They have truly awakened. On Earth, the first human figure stepped forward. He rose from a chamber. Deep beneath a ruined city, his body tall and armored, his eyes burning like suns. His steps echoed across the broken streets, though no one was there to hear them. Yet across the stars, billions felt each step as if the ground beneath their worlds trembled. He reached the surface and looked to the sky. His voice was low, almost gentle, but it carried across the galaxy. You forgot us. You forgot the law. The ground cracked around him. More chambers opened. More figures rose, men and women, their armor sharp, their presence heavy. They carried weapons no species could name, weapons that seemed less like tools and more like extensions of themselves. They did not speak to one another. They did not need to. Their eyes locked on the stars as if they could already see the fleets. Hiding beyond them, panic grew everywhere, in the colonies. Riots erupted. Citizens demanded their leaders surrender before it was too late. In the fleets, some admirals ordered retreat, while others prepared to launch reckless attacks. And in the council, chaos was complete until Elder Tharn slammed his staff into full. The floor, fools. He roared, louder than any had ever heard him. Do you not understand? You cannot bargain. You cannot fight. You can only endure. The first law was written because survival depended on it. Never wake the humans. And now, you have. But the younger delegates shouted back, desperate with fear. Then we must try. If they rise fully, nothing will remain. Better to die fighting than to kneel. Their voices cracked even as they spoke. None of them believed what they said. In the Sol system, the awakening continued. Massive warships, shaped like blades of light, broke orbit and formed a wall across the stars. Each one hummed with power that defied physics. Shields shimmered around them, so strong that even the galaxy's greatest weapons would have glanced off like dust. Then one ship, larger than all the rest, emerged from the ocean of Earth. Its shadow stretched across the planet. Its hull was carved with ancient warnings in 100 dead languages. And across every system, the voice returned. The reckoning begins. For the first time in history, the galaxy understood what true fear was. This was no invasion. This was no war. This was humanity simply waking up. And already the stars trembled. Asterisk, the reckoning. The galaxy had prepared for wars before. Empires had fallen, fleets had clashed, planets had burned. But nothing compared to this moment. The humans were awake. In the Sol system. Their fleet spread across the void like a storm front. Thousands of warships stood in formation, silent but heavy with presence. They did not broadcast signals. They did not send warnings. They simply existed, and that was enough to freeze entire empires in fear. The largest of them, a warship so vast it blocked out stars, shifted in the dark. One slow movement, and the gravity of nearby moons trembled. On its hull, ancient words glowed bright. Remember the law. In the Galactic Council, panic became frenzy. Admirals begged for authorization to attack. Some demanded peace talks. Others screamed for surrender. High Chancellor Varys stood pale and silent, her voice broken by fear. She had seen the recordings, felt the voice inside her head. To her, the truth was clear. This was not an enemy to fight. This was a force to survive. But younger leaders refused to accept it. We must strike before they march beyond Sol, shouted the Zoran general. If we do nothing, they will swallow us whole. Elder Tharn slammed his staff against the floor. Strike? You fools! When the last empire tried to strike, entire star systems burned. Do you not remember your own histories? There is no war with humans. There is only reckoning. The reckoning began at the borders. A combined fleet of 12 empires gathered near Sol, their banners flying, their weapons locked. It was the greatest armada assembled in living memory. Millions of soldiers prepared themselves, whispering prayers, tightening armor straps, kissing family images one last time. The order was given. The fleet advanced. And then silence. Their ships froze, caught in invisible pressure. Weapons powered. Down, not by command, but as if reality itself refused to let them fire. Crews screamed as their controls went dead. From the Sol system, a single human warship moved forward. Not the largest, not the strongest, just one. Its engines burned white, and in seconds, it crossed the gulf of stars it should have taken. Dazed, it appeared in the middle of the enemy armada. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the human ship flared with light. When the glow faded, the combined fleet was gone. Not destroyed, not shattered, simply erased, as if they had never existed. The recording spread across the galaxy in minutes. Every world, every colony, every child saw it. And everywhere, the same words echoed in their minds: never wake the humans. On frontier colonies, civilians packed ships and fled into the void. On core worlds, rulers began surrendering before a single human set foot near them. Even the pirate lords, who feared nothing, abandoned their fleets and hid in deep space, whispering the old law to themselves like a prayer. The galaxy had not just lost a battle. It had lost its courage. Back on Earth, the humans gathered. They stood on the surface, armored and radiant, their eyes glowing brighter than the suns above them. They looked into the skies, into the stars where billions hid and trembled. One of them, taller than the rest, his armor shining with golden light, raised his hand. His voice boomed across the galaxy, into every ship, every world, every soul. You broke the law, and now you will learn why it was written. His words were not shouted. They were spoken calmly, with certainty. Yet they carried more weight than any fleet, any weapon, any empire. In the council chamber, silence followed. No one dared speak. Even High Chancellor Varys bowed her head, her silver crown heavy with dread. The elder Tharn closed his eyes, a single tear falling. The reckoning is here. We can only hope they will stop before nothing remains. But deep in his heart, he doubted even that. Across the galaxy, shadows spread. Human ships began to move outward, not in chaos, but in perfect unity. Their advance was slow, deliberate, unstoppable. This was not conquest. This was not revenge. This was judgment, and the stars themselves trembled beneath it. The reckoning had begun. Asterisk. The return of the old law of the galaxy was no longer debating, no longer laughing, no longer planning. The galaxy was kneeling. Every world, every fleet, every council had seen the impossible. One human ship erasing the greatest armada in history. Not defeated, not destroyed, simply gone, as though it had never been. The stars themselves seemed smaller now. Entire empires whispered the same words in their streets, their palaces, their war rooms. Never wake the humans. It was no longer a law of history. It was a law of survival. In the Sol system, the humans stood in silence. Their warships hung like blades across the dark. Their soldiers gathered on Earth's surface, their eyes burning with fire. They did not rush forward. They did not conquer in haste. They waited calm, patient, inevitable. The galaxy understood the horror then. The humans were not angry. They were not even desperate. They were simply awake, and that was enough. At the Galactic Council, silence reigned. Delegates no longer screamed or shouted. They sat pale, trembling, staring at the empty screens that had once shown their fleets. High Chancellor Varys rose slowly, her voice breaking as she spoke. We cannot fight them. We cannot hide. There is only one path left. She lowered her head, silver crown heavy with shame. We must beg. Her words spread like wildfire across the chamber. Entire species, proud for millennia, swallowed their pride. They whispered the same thought. Survival mattered more than honor, but the elder Tharn stood tall. For the first time in centuries, his voice was not shaking. You cannot beg what does not need you. You cannot buy what already owns you. The humans are not returning to rule. They are returning to remind. The oldest law was not a warning, it was a mercy. His words struck the chamber like a blade. None dared argue. Far away on Earth, the golden-armored human raised his hand again. His voice filled the galaxy, calm yet merciless. The law was forgotten. You broke it. Now it will be remembered. Across the stars, every screen, every transmitter, every mind carried the same message. It burned itself into the skies, written in light and fire. Never wake the humans. The reckoning slowed. Fleets of humans halted at the borders of Sol. Their ships did not fire. Their armies did not march. They waited, still and silent, staring outward at the galaxy that had disturbed their rest. For days, weeks, nothing moved. The galaxy lived in fear, unsure whether destruction or mercy would fall next. Then, one by one, the human fleets withdrew. They sank back into their vaults, into their oceans, into the mountains and earth that had hidden them for millennia. But before they vanished, their voices thundered one last time. Sleep, if you wish. Grow, if you dare. But never forget again. For if we are woken once more, there will be no stars left to tremble. And with that, the skies grew silent again. The pulse faded. The ships disappeared. The humans returned to their slumber. But the galaxy was never the same. On every world, monuments were built, etched with the words of the law. On every ship, warnings were engraved, carried like shields against temptation. Children grew up learning it as their first lesson. Leaders repeated it as their last command. Never wake the humans. It was not myth anymore. It was not legend. It was truth carved into the bones of the universe. And though Earth slept once more, every being across the stars knew one thing. The humans were not gone. They were only waiting, asterisk,